What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Bulls Report. My name is Patrick Siepman. Coming up on today's show, Bleacher Report suggested a Zach LaVine trade for that man right there, Ben Simmons. We'll touch on that at the first half of today's show. And then also, there's some contract extension rumors around Patrick Williams and DeMar DeRozan. Want to get the quotes from that out to you guys in the second half of today's show. But just kick it to the trade idea that Bleacher Report had around Zach LaVine and, of course, Ben Simmons. We got to break this whole thing down. But first, just the overall trade itself. So the Bulls will be receiving Ben Simmons, obviously, and then a 2029 first-round pick from the Dallas Mavericks, which is unprotected, which is probably the best asset a part of this trade. Then also a 2026 and 28 second-round pick. And the Bulls will be only giving up, obviously, Zach LaVine. And I just want to say this about this trade at first. I absolutely love this trade. Obviously, Ben Simmons is the biggest question mark and kind of wild factor a part of this deal. But the fact that you would be able to get a 2029 unprotected first-round pick from the Dallas Mavericks, who, as we know, they have Luka Doncic. Obviously, they're going to be, competing for the next 10 seasons at least. But you never know. What if Luka misses a year in that 2029 year, or that 2029 first-round pick could be top 10? You never know. And the fact that you'll be able to get a first-round pick and move off Zach LaVine, I think it makes a lot of sense. We'll touch on this guy here, though, Ben Simmons, is why I'm a little more optimistic about his future than most people in the NBA. But let's just kick it to Greg Swartz here, who writes for Bleacher Report, who suggested this trade. He said Brooklyn is the perfect destination for LaVine, a franchise in need of some scoring punch and with no incentive to tank. Assuming LaVine makes a full recovery from foot surgery and gets back to his all-star level play, the 28-year-old could serve as the primary scorer and playmaker for a Nets team that already features a lot of defensive talent. If there's any concern about LaVine's ability to stop opponents, putting him in a starting lineup that features Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton would help alleviate these worries. And I totally get it from the Nets side of things. I would be interested in Zach LaVine too. We obviously know that they have been kind of stuck in this kind of purgatory in the NBA for the past couple of seasons. Obviously, post Kevin Durant at last year's trade deadline. But starting off with Ben Simmons here, I absolutely love Simmons' kind of potential in the league. I think his stats here are incredibly just kind of telling on who he is as a player. Most of the time stats don't lie, but especially with Ben Simmons. I mean, average only 6.1 points per game this season, 8 rebounds, and nearly 6 assists, and shooting 58.1% from the field on only 24 minutes a game. But we obviously know with Ben Simmons, he's a polarizing player. He's got pros, he's got cons, and, kind of the biggest pro of Simmons, what got him selected number 1 overall in the NBA draft was just he is a freak athlete. I mean, that true 6'10 frame and the ability to move incredibly well on the perimeter is his number 1 asset. He can guard legitimately any single player in the NBA. But the biggest con is just the mental side of the game. And, it's not just like the mental side of the game, which is also another con I have, where it's the love he may not have for the game of basketball, which I do think you need just to continuously develop your skills. But the con of just like the scoring side of it. Like if you took maybe a mindset of a guy like a Jalen Brunson, where it's just like he is just in full attack mode all the time, and you gave it to Ben Simmons' kind of body and his frame, I mean, you would have one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but he still struggles with the mental side of it. You've heard the reports of him going to a sports psychologist, trying to figure that side of the game out. But I definitely do think like the biggest con with Ben Simmons is just the mental side, and that's a side that may not be fixable, which is a huge concern for me. But he is an elite defender. Kind of speaks into the freak athlete part of it, man. I mean, he can truly guard 1 through 5, I believe, in the NBA. He is a pest on defense. He's always high in deflections per game in the NBA, and I just really, I think and if you would compare him with a couple other defenders on the Bulls, I think the Bulls could really have one of the best defensive units in the league. And still also, he's got a ton of potential, man. Like, I understand, like, him not playing games, like, he has a very negative view of him amongst, most NBA fans and media. But the thing is with him is just, like, if he would ever get it together, where if he would ever be a guy that averages 12 points a game, and that's not even asking a lot, but you pair that up with his playmaking, you pair that up with his elite defense, like, he could be a really valuable asset for any NBA team. Also gets me to this point in terms of this trade. You don't want to trade Zach LaVine when his value is at its lowest. And this summer will be the lowest we have ever seen Zach LaVine's trade value by far. Like, I thought it was going to be the lowest at this past NBA trade deadline. Well, this summer, coming off that foot surgery, it is even lower. But the biggest benefit of this trade is you would be able to move off his contract. We obviously know Zach LaVine is set to make $40+ million over the next 3 seasons. If you could somehow move off that deal, I think it would be huge for the Bulls. And I would do this trade. Obviously, there's a ton of question marks and ton of, outside variables that would have to, come to play here. But in terms of that deal, I would do it mainly just to get that freaking first-round pick from the Dallas Mavericks. Before we dive into here more on the Bulls Report, I just want to get you guys involved, kind of doing a look in the mirror, kind of some self-reflection here on the channel. How likely are you guys to recommend this show to your friends, other Bulls fans that may be out there? Just scale it to me 1 through 10 down in the comment section. I'm going to make this the pinned comment on today's video. Really curious to see what you guys have to say. If you guys have any more insight on how you think we can make the show better, tell me. This is a show that, I really want to get you guys' input on. So let me know. How likely are you to recommend the show 1 through 10 down in the comments section? So coming up here in a little bit, our extensions coming for Patrick Williams and DeMar DeRozan. We do have some reports on that. But first, I do want to give a big time shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Factor. If you guys go to factormeals.com/BullsChat50 and use code BullsChat50, you will get 50% off. That's code BullsChat50 at factormeals.com/BullsChat50 to get 50% off. What is Factor? It is 2-minute meals, and it helps you fuel up fast, and they are ready to heat and eat wherever you are. Sign up and save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious, and delicious. Factor is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, upscale options that are done very easily. It's flexible for your schedule. Get as much or as little as you need by choosing 6 to 18 meals per week. Plus, you can pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. No prep, no mess meals. Factor meals are 100% ready to heat and eat, so there's no prepping, cooking, or cleanup needed. Head to factormeals.com/BullsChat50 and use code BullsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BullsChat50 at factormeals.com/BullsChat50 to get 50% off. All right, let's talk about it. So the 2 biggest decisions I do think the Bulls need to make this offseason are obviously around the 2 contracts that you have a choice to or the 2 players that you have a choice to extend them, and that is Patrick Williams and DeMar DeRozan. And already some NBA insiders are starting to talk about what the Bulls are planning on doing, and Greg Swartz of Bleacher Report had this to say, writing up an article about it. He said, running it back seems to be a theme for the 28-31 Bulls. Yeah, running it back is always the theme for the Bulls. But he carried on to say, a strategy that could continue this summer with DeMar DeRozan and Patrick Williams. DeRozan staying in Chicago is reasonable given his lack of fits among teams with cap space. Outside the Philadelphia Sixers or Orlando Magic, making a push for the former All-Star, DeRozan's best chance to get paid again could come from the Bulls. And it gets me always back to this. The Bulls should have traded DeMar DeRozan at the deadline. It is just so frustrating, going back to like what the Bulls didn't do at this trade deadline, is because you could have netted, I'm not saying it would have been a good deal for the Bulls, but a 2nd-round pick for DeMar DeRozan, it would have been better than what you could have gotten if you just let him walk this summer. And I would still let him walk this summer. I don't think there's any reason to bring him back, mainly because of this point. You let DeMar DeRozan walk. You will allow guys like Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu, this young backcourt that you have, to still develop. And that should be the Bulls' #1 priority, letting this young talent kind of, really hone in and grow their talent. Let him walk this summer. I understand it would be incredibly frustrating that you did not trade him and then you'd be letting him walk for nothing, but you got to think about the future. The Bulls too much just always think about the short term. Think about the long term and get yourself out of this, purgatory that the Bulls have been obviously stuck in. However, about Patrick Williams, I feel a little bit differently. And, I'm not saying that Patrick Williams, I'm saying he's going to develop into an all-star. Like, I think maybe that is, that time is done. But I do think Patrick Williams could develop into one of the better 3-and-D players we see in the NBA. We know what he does defensively. I mean, you guys can see it on screen right now. Just overall frame he has at 6'7", 7-foot-long wingspan. But he's shooting yet again 40% from downtown this season. And that's even better considering he started off after the first about half of the year. He was shooting around 30%. He's been on fire as of lately, especially after that LaVine injury. It turns out a lot of guys on the Bulls started playing better after LaVine went out. But Patrick Williams was definitely that guy, and that's why I want to bring him back. You spent the 4th overall pick on him, and you're not going to bring him back on his 2nd contract when he has shown flashes, and my eyes don't lie with him. Like, when I see him, when everything is hitting for Patrick Williams, and maybe this is just me being a Bulls fan, I legitimately see Kawhi Leonard in his game. Like the one dribble pull-up. When he gets to that pull-up midi that he's kind of fading away on, it literally looks like Kawhi back in Toronto. And obviously won't be able to go reach that top potential that Kawhi offers, but I do really think that P-Dub, could he develop into a guy where, he's a bench player on the All-Star team and he's averaging around 22 and 8 and he's giving you elite defense? Yes, I do still believe that he could do that. I'm not giving up on him just yet. Still a very young kid. Just wait to see what he could be, maybe 4 years. And the one thing about Patrick Williams that I do love, he has shown the work ethic over his NBA career. He came into the league, could not shoot the basketball to save or for the life of him. Now he's one of the better three-point shooters in the NBA, especially from the catch-and-shoot perspective. So I want to bring him back. That's who I would choose if I had to pick one player to extend. But maybe you guys disagree with me. Between these two guys, DeMar DeRozan and Patrick Williams, pick one to extend. Type DD for DeMar or type PW for Patrick Williams. Tell you what, though, if either of those guys do get extended, we'll have a video for you guys ASAP. So hit that subscribe button, lock us in, and as always, go Bulls.